Okay, you're on.
My name is William Shealy. We're here at Boonesborough State Park, and we come from Chicago. And learned some time ago, my wife doing genealogy, that we had a multiple great grandmother that was born at the Boonesborough fort in 1782, and very interesting. And this is a nice reenactment here. We're pleased to be here. It's a nice day, a lot of information, and but we've moved all over, obviously. And but Kentucky is a nice place to be from. It truly is, and we're just pleased. So thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
Okay, hi, I'm David Van Meter. I'm a surveyor for the Fluvanna County of Virginia. I'm visiting here in Kentucky at Fort Boonesborough. Surveyors on the early frontier were very important because they were the official arm of the government at the time, and they were allotting the land to people that wanted to purchase property here in Kentucky. There were many ways you could do that. A lot of people would come with land warrants that were officially signed and for a specific amount of property, in which case we would take that warrant and fulfill that request. You could actually purchase land from a surveyor directly, but part of the thing that the surveyors did was they took that information and they filed it with the local courthouse. Unfortunately, a lot of the times the local courthouse was clear back in Williamsburg, Virginia, so it took a lot of time for this process to go through. So I always like to say that the colonial surveyors were the people that brought order out of the chaos of the frontier. There were a lot of people out here who were claiming land by marking trees or doing small clearances and whatnot. Those people, unfortunately, probably lost a lot of battles over that land because the surveyors were, as I said, stated earlier, the official arm of the government, and were able to create logical plats and whatnot to show the property lines. Now in Kentucky, you still see a lot of early property lines that still refer to the old meets and bounds, where they were referencing trees and rocks, which are no longer there, and creates a lot of problems in modern survey work. Colonial surveyors were in a dangerous situation because the Indians were not fond of them. They spent a lot of time defending themselves. Every member of a survey party should have been armed. They were frequently attacked. Some of the early people that came out here, for instance, Christopher Gist, his original survey of this area, trying to find the falls of the Ohio, he basically had his servant, a couple horses, a small hand compass, and a logbook that he brought with him. And the reason for that, just a small compass, was because he was very stealthy and he could move quietly and quickly on his own. However, if the Indians saw a lot of surveying equipment, that was not a good sign. So he was able to actually do early reports of this area back to the government in Virginia, and let them know what the possibilities were for westward expansion. So, anything else? Was that good?
Okay, my name is Waska Kersey. I was originally a Bush. I'm from Boyd County now, originally from Carter County. My grandfather and my great-grandfather came in from Virginia down into Pikeville and settled in Carter County. And what I understand is that some of my grandfather's brothers came in down through the Gap with Captain Billy Bush and Daniel Boone. And I am the youngest of 8 children, and I'm the only one living. And as I have related, I don't know why, but I never ever heard my father relate anything about his daddy, or anything that this happened. Evidently, they didn't know it all. Of course, they didn't have television and radios and stuff like that. But my nephew had came across someone that had compile this book, and they knew that it was being compiled, and he got me this copy, and there is so much in here, and I have went through it and went back to when in 1568 when the first Bush came in from England, and I have gone all the way back, and from the way I can figure it out, this man that came in from England would have been my grandfather 12 times removed. That seemed like a lot. And I'm almost 86 years old, and I have been thinking about this coming down this way for a good little while. And we had stopped by here back about 3 months ago, and they gave us a card that this was taking place today. So we decided if we were able, we was going to come down and bring our book and share it. So we shared it with the society up here. They took our name and address and things, and they was going to go and see what else they could find. And when you get up almost 86, you get to thinking, I'm not going to be here much longer, and maybe I can tell my children and grandchildren some things. But I appreciate you all doing this.
Well, anytime you want to say anything else, let us know.
Okay.
And yeah, my name's Ernie Benka with ARC TV. You have got a lot of relatives in Southwest Virginia. The Bushes there came in with Daniel Boone.
Yeah. Oh, I know they did.
Yeah.
Captain Billy's in here.
And he's in here when he was born and everything. And also, they built a lot of mills up there, grist mills, and they're still standing.
Bush Mill. Yeah.
Yes, they're
Yeah,
still standing.
In Scott County, Virginia.
Yes.
Yeah, we go over and videotape that every once.
Okay.
You need to
Okay.
come down and see it.
Well, we're getting older and not really able. Didn't know if I was going to be able to come down here today. Not able to get around doing much walking, but I'm ever so often I drag this old book out and I start looking through it. And according to my book, what I read here, my great grandmother was scalped as a child and lived, and I've been understand that she was also scalped again as an adult. I mean,
And what was her name?
oh, it's here.
Do you know where what area she was scalped in?
No, probably maybe coming down from Virginia. I don't know.
Well, there's several people I have read about lately that have been scalped and lived.
This.
Okay, Lena, come over and read this. I ain't gonna read this.
This one here.
This was my
This
great.
right here?
This one up here. This was my great grandfather, and this is my great grandfather and wife. So that's what he
Okay.
wants you to look
Austin B, 1778. D, 1885. M, Nancy. In 1798, Austin married a girl by the name of Nancy. It is not known if this was her true name or not, as she was supposedly Cherokee Indian. This is where the Russell and Scott County, Virginia, Bush families originated. Austin is the son of James Bush, born in 1756 and died in 1808. Married Mary Polly Plunkett. The children of Austin and Nancy were Valentine, born in 1799 and deceased in 1904, married Nancy Goss in 1832. Valentine's children will be listed further down in this document. It is a very long section. James M. was born 1802 and died in 1888, married Margaret Jane Goss.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I believe, from what I can remember him telling me when he got it, his ex-wife's sister knew something about this book, and he traced it down, and they're not printing it anymore. But I think there's an address in here somewhere that you can maybe try to order one. A boy by the name of Crum, I believe, lives up around Columbus. He was working on this, and that's all I know about it.
Okay. Thank you.
My name is Sandy Stoltz, and I'm the Executive Director at the Bluegrass Heritage Museum in Winchester, Kentucky. We're located at 217 South Main Street, downtown Winchester. We invite anybody who is in this viewing area to come to when you're in Winchester to stop by and see us. I'm originally from Eastern Kentucky, so those of you who are out there watching probably know my family or where I'm from. My mother's from Wise County, Virginia, and my dad's from Letcher County. So I grew up in Virginia and Kentucky both, and ended up coming to Clark County to teach school. I taught school in Jenkins for 2 or 3 years, and then moved down here, and I've been here for 35 years, teaching here and then over at UK. And I'm now directing the museum, and it's a history museum, and we talk a lot about the history of this area. We are here today at Fort Boonesborough for their gathering of descendants. We have a lot of information here about people who came through Fort Boonesborough, who settled in Winchester who came in out of Fort Boonesborough along the lower Howards Creek and came up into Winchester. So, if you're interested in doing any genealogy in this area, you can also stop by the museum and check with us there.
Now, your mother's from Wise County.
Yes, my grandfather is John Wright. John W. Wright. Some people may know him as Bad John Wright.
Yeah, really. Tell us all about Bad John.
He's my great-great-grandfather. He pretty well renowned in that area. There's been lots of books written about him.
And there's more being published now.
There is. People are really doing a lot of research. I've had a lot of calls because of my mother. My mother's one of the oldest descendants, around. My Uncle Chid wrote a book about him, and he passed away many years ago. And Grandpa is buried in our family cemetery, and he had, we think around 32, maybe 34 children with 5 different ladies.
And could that be why you're interested in your ancestors?
Me? Well, I'm also interested in Grandpa Wright, and also, on my website too in Letcher County, because we're related to the Boones. My grandfather, so far back, came in to Jenkins through Pound Gap, 1803, 1804. They came into that area, settled along the North Fork of the Kentucky River. We still live in that area. My parents still have a home there. My father's passed away, but my parents still have a home there.
Well, what's your mother's name? Give your mom a hey.
My mother's name is Blanche Webb. She was a Mullins. Her grandmother was Healthy Mullins, which was a daughter of Grandpa Wright. My grandma Ellen, he was married twice, so my grandma Ellen was his second wife, and she died the day I was born. And his first wife, Maddie, died on March the 12th, and I was born on March the 12th. So, anyway, and Grandpa was in the Civil War, fought in the Civil War. He was a high sheriff. He was a Pinkerton detective agent. He was with the circus. Just well known by a lot of different people in that, and there's an outdoor drama. John Fox Jr. came to his home and lived with them for a while, and he wrote the book Trail of Lonesome Pine. And then there's an outdoor drama at Big Stone Gap, about the Trail of Lonesome Pine, which was based on him, was based on Grandpa Wright.
That's it. Well, now, how many people have you heard that Bad John Wright killed?
26.
Okay, now say that because they can't hear me speaking.
Oh, he has killed 20. Well, I have heard.
Really?
I have heard. I don't know for sure. I don't want to think this because I'm a descendant of his, but I have heard he killed at least 26 people. But it was all in the line of duty.
Yeah.
In the line of duty.
Yeah.
And some of his really good friends were kind of outlaws too. I'm sure you all have heard of Tout Hall. And Tout Hall was, the story goes that Grandpa was on his way. Tout Hall was in the jail over at Wise and was going to be hanged. And he'd sent word to Grandpa to come get him out. They thought that he had enough pull to get him out of jail. So he started, and there was a mudslide, and he couldn't get there, and by the time he got there, Tout had already been hung. So that's a story that I've heard. One of Grandpa's sons, Joel Wright, he lived with us when I was a little girl. After his wife died, he lived over in over at Pound, and he lived with us, and so I was interested enough in history that even as a small young child, I would ask questions, and he would tell me stories after stories after stories. So I got a lot of good stories about Grandpa Wright.
That sounds great. Well, tell us who you are and how to get a hold of you.
I'm Sandy Stulls, the Executive Director of the Bluegrass Heritage Museum. We're located at 217 South Main Street in Winchester, Kentucky. Our phone number is 859-745-1358. We are on the web. BG Heritage at bellsouth.net is our email, and bgheritage.com is our website. So visit us anytime.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Appreciate that.
And so I guess y'all know all about Grandpa.
That's story.
Yeah.
Well, there's a really interesting story about.
Well, here, tell us more about it.
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, there's a really interesting story about a couple of his sons were on a wagon, and they were going from one place to another. I'm not sure exactly where. And I've got a picture of them on the wagon. And they picked up this man, and they were asking him, says, "Do you know anything about John Wright?" And they said, "Yeah, we know a little bit about him." And they said, "Well, we're getting ready to play basketball against Pound. You know, and we've heard that he's got some sons that play on the basketball team at Pound." And he said, "We're just a little bit afraid to play basketball because we've heard he's a pretty mean guy." And that guy said, and one of the sons said, "Well, he's not that bad." He said, and they introduced themselves to him, and so they told him that, you know, he was Brad John's sons, and he said, "You're not going to hurt us when we play ball with you, are you?" He said, "No." No, they weren't going to hurt him. So anyway, but there's a lot of good stories. You know, he was related to Martin Van Buren Bates, who was the giant. He and his wife together are in the Guinness Book of World Records as the tallest couple. And Martin
Tell
Van.
us more about that. This is the first
How much
story
you want
I've
me
heard
to?
about this.
How much you want me to tell?
Just keep on keeping on there.
I'm a good beat.
That's okay.
You're doing a great job.
Well, let's see. Martin Van Buren Bates, he was born in Letcher County, down on right around Payne Gap where we live now. When he started growing, he just kept growing, and so, you know, he was real close to Grandpa Wright, and so when they went into the service, he went into the service too, and he had gone to Emory and Henry College too, Martin Van Buren Bates. And after the war, he came back and taught school. We think, you know, there's a lot of different stories. There's a guy from Hazard that's doing some research, and he does a little program on Martin Van Buren Bates. And so, as you do research, you find out different stories and different things. And so, you know, we think he came back, and then he joined the circus when Grandpa did, and then he met this Anna Swan. And so they were in the circus together, and they traveled all over the United States. They went over to England. They met the Queen. She gave them matching watches, and so they came back and they settled in Ohio, and that's where they were when they both died. But he was, you know, supposedly she was the tallest woman, and he was not quite the tallest man, but together they were the tallest couple. And he was originally from Payne Gap, from Letcher County.
Did they have any kids?
They had a child and it died. Yeah, so.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know any other stories right now.
Yeah, tell us more stories. We'll be here all day.
Oh, that's okay. You need to go talk to somebody else right now. But, you know, this is a great event. I'm so glad the fort has done this. It really helps people when doing their genealogy work. And so this is a great thing for people to do, you know, for the fort to do. So come see us at the museum.
Thank you.
One story I heard that he had a secret passageway from Pound to Jenkins, and that no one could figure out how he could transverse that mountain as quickly as he could. Have you never heard that?
I know that. I know the answer to that.
What's that?
There's a cave through the mountain.
Yeah, there is a cave.
It's got 600-foot ceiling.
Yeah.
There is a cave. That's why it's called, it used to be called
Pound.
Sounding Cave.
Sounding
Gap, you know, Sounding Gap. And that's why, because when the Indians would go across, they'd make that sound, and they named it Sounding Gap. And then later on, it became Pound Gap. Mm-hmm.
You want to tell us about Sounding Gap real quick? Yeah, this is important stuff here.
You're supposed to be doing Clark County history.
Well, it's all.
Ask of me about if Grandpa had a secret passageway between Jenkins and the Pound, so he could get back and forth between Kentucky and Virginia really fast. And so there is a underground cave system, you know, through Pound Gap. And so when the Native Americans were going through and they would go through, their horses would make a sound, you know, because of the because it was empty down there, and it would make this sound. And so they called it Sounding Gap, and then later on they turned it into Pound Gap. So that's why Pound Gap has its name.
Okay, very good. Thank you again.
Hello, I'm Tom Black. I'm president of the Madison County Historical Society, and we have been a society since 1894 and have worked to enhance the preservation of the history of the county in terms of sites, events, and people. And we're not particularly into genealogy, but we do try to support the genealogists and make sure that people get pointed in the right direction for that. And we have a number of records which are available to the public for particularly cemeteries, and some on the records of the county that have been transcribed. How much more do I need to go?
Well, just tell us about the history of Madison County.
Well, of course, Madison County goes back to the days of Boonesborough, when Daniel Boone came in on Boone's Trace, not the Wilderness Road. He came in on Boone's Trace and started Boonesborough, and it was the primary location that people came to in the county for the first several years, and then they started spreading out and inhabiting other parts of the county. There were a number of locations that were called forts, that were basically fortified cabins, more so than a fort. And the county is very rich and ended up being a very desirable agricultural area for the settlers to come to. And I have roots that go back to the earliest days in the county, and feel very fortunate about that. And our neighbors to the side here, the Society of Boonesborough, only takes people who came in with Daniel Boone or came to Boonesborough within the first few years. So it was a great honor to be in that group, and there's only a few of us that still are in the county that have that lineage. So
your family came in?
I have ancestors that came in with Daniel Boone. As a matter of fact, one of them was one of his trailblazing party that came in, and he eventually became one of the first justices of the county of Madison when it was separated from Lincoln. And a separate grandfather was also on that court. So I had two that were in the earliest governance of Madison County, and also the dispensing of justice, since one court did everything. They settled disputes and governed the county, managed the budget such as it was, and directed what roads to be built, and where to survey, and all those sorts of things, and record keeping, of course.
Very large at that time, too.
Well, Madison County did not have too much shrinking that took place. It did include a little bit of Estill, a little bit of Jackson, Rockcastle, and Garrett at one time, but it got down to its present size fairly quickly. And I can't recall the exact year that it ended up being its current boundaries, but it was fairly early in the 1800s when that happened. And we have survived without getting divided again. So it's an old county. It was excised out of Lincoln County, which was one of the original 3 counties of the state, and extremely large, and it got broken up very quickly after the Kentucky state government formed. Of course, from Virginia, we separated from Virginia. We got to secede, unlike the southern states got not to secede. So,
No, it's just interesting how history has it wrong with it not being the Wilderness Trail.
Well, the Wilderness Trail actually is part of what is Boone's Trace. But the Wilderness Trail came out of southwest Virginia through the Cumberland Gap came up as far as Hazel Patch, and then there was a western route that went into Harrodsburg, and then to Danville and Lexington, or to Louisville, that is the real wilderness road. Boone's Trace came out of Cumberland Gap and kept headed north, and from Hazel Patch, which is near London, to Boonesborough is not wilderness road, it's Boone's Trace. And there's a difference.
London up to Harrodsburg, which I'm originally from Harrodsburg myself. That's the wilderness road.
That's the correct wilderness road, and I cannot remember what the original name of that little trace was, but it morphed into the wilderness road because it was developed. The state funded additional work on it, and it was widened and smooth and ended up going all the way into Louisville early in the 19th century, early 1800s. That's the difference between the two. And and I say that on the behalf of Dr. John Fox, who's the president of the Friends of Boone's Trace, who is working very diligently to improve the knowledge of Boone's Trace and its location, and basically to reincarnate it and perhaps make it a trail that people can hike. There's a motorized version of the Boone's Trace now, and he would like to see if he could eventually get it to the point where it's hikeable as much as possible.
I wonder if John Fox is related to the John Fox Jr. of Southwest Virginia.
Can't tell you about John's heritage. All I know is he rides a Harley. So, okay. Anything else?
Okay, my name is Dean Whitaker, and I am president of the Society of Boonesborough. And our organization is an organization of lineal descendants from pioneers who settled Fort Boonesborough and the Boonesborough area. And we were founded in 1975, and we have around 500 members in about 20 different states. And one of our largest projects that we did was erecting the Pioneer Ancestor Monument in front of the fort, and that was erected in 1981, and we turned that over to the state of Kentucky for the Fort Boonesborough State Park. We also funded 3 of the state highway markers that are down along the main road. We did that in 1976, 1 year after we were founded. And we've also had members in 1979 that went to England, and they placed a marker in the St. Dyson's Church where the Boone family ancestors lived before they came to America. And any questions you all can ask me? Or
What got you interested in this?
I've always loved history. I think that came from my mom's side of the family, and I've always enjoyed all types of history, and started out with Civil War being my favorite, and then I got into pioneer history, and my wife has helped me with my lineage as far as family lines, and she's tracked 3 lines that come to Boonesborough that were here came with Daniel Boone at the original trip, and the original axemen that cut the track. And I'm descended from Oldhams, I'm descended from Phelpses, and those names are on the original tombstone that are down by the river. And that type of information, when I've learned things like that, has just piqued my interest in pioneer history. And I love Fort Boonesborough State Park anyway, and they do an excellent job down here promoting. And I've got friends that you mentioned, Dr. John Fox. He's the head of an organization called Friends of Boone Trace, and he signed me on as a director. And I've got interested in Boone Trace all the way from the Holston River up to Fort Boonesborough here.
And you were here when we videotaped Curtis.
Yes, I was, and that was a wonderful experience for those two guys. And I know Dr. Fox's son, Given, joined the group, joined Curtis in Cumberland Gap. But Curtis is the one that did the whole 220 miles, 225 miles, whatever the trek was. And I know he had 2 or 3 days of really bad rain, and he probably explained some of that to you.
Well, we videotaped him 7 out of 8 days
Yep.
in Virginia.
And 16 days what he was on the road, I think. So that's for carrying the weight and the packs that he did. And I mean, I think he accomplished a great thing. I hope it promotes Boone Trace. I hope it promotes history of this fort and the area around the fort. I think he told you he's actually a member of our organization, and we presented him with his certificate in the orientation center here when he came to the fort. And as I say, we promote, we do preservation work, we promote history, we promote genealogy, and anybody wants to come see us today and talk to us, we'd be glad to talk with them.
Who's your genealogist?
My genealogist, my wife Vicki, and
I thought that was your daughter.
I've heard that before too.
Okay, just hand that right over to her.
No, I don't do that. Sorry, I was being mean to you.
Okay, just tell us whatever you want to tell us.
Okay, my name is Vicki Whitaker. I'm the registrar of the Society of Boonesborough. Our previous registrar was Tom Tudor, who just passed away in December. And he actually put together the research work for the early settlers at Fort Boonesborough. He did this booklet, and this is available for purchase at the fort. And we use it as our Bible, more or less, to document new members when they apply. I'm also a genealogist for the Boonesborough chapter of DAR and a past genealogist for the Madison County Historical Society. And my husband's the historian in the family, and I'm the genealogist.
So tell us what genealogy does. People don't get interested.
Well, not everybody is interested in genealogy, but for people who are, there's so much available these days. You can go to courthouses and get actual documents, old marriage records, deeds, wills, that kind of thing that'll lead you to who your ancestors were. I would promote Ancestry.com as the best place to do genealogical research. You can find almost anything on there. They have so many original documents, and it's something I use daily for my genealogical research work.
Anything else you want to tell?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right, my name's Eldon Evans. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, member of the Boone Society. The Boone Society is a national organization of descendants of the Boone family and associated families that married into the Boone families, as well as historians and people that are just interested in the frontier story. The Boone Society is here at the Gathering of Descendants at Fort Boonesborough, obviously because of a lot of our family members came through here in the 1700s, early pioneers of Kentucky. And we want, our mission is to tell the story of Daniel Boone and the pioneers, and make sure that the younger generations understand that part of history and how this part of the country got opened up to the settlers. So.
Now, if people want to get in contact with you, how do they do
that? The best way to get in touch with us is through our webpage, which the webpage address is www.boonesociety.org.
Okay, and who are these young people here?
I'll let them tell you.
Well, first I'll introduce this lovely lady over here. This is my wife, Barbara Bidwell Hammond, and she was born in Hawaii. And I was in World War II, and I picked up a lot of things around the world. Anyhow, I'm here because I wrote several books. Now, this is one of the big sellers. The University of Kentucky Press published this one. It's called My Father, Daniel Boone. And actually what it is, I edited, this is an interview between Daniel Boone's son Nathan and a fellow named Draper. And this interview, it took him 3 weeks, as I recall. He was there at Nathan Boone's house for weeks making this interview, and this is the version of it. And it's what Daniel Boone's son says about Daniel Boone. And this one, I wrote this one, it was published by the Boone Society. It's called Daniel Boone and the Defeat at Blue Lick. And it gives a lot of details about the battle up there at Blue Licks in 1782. And this one doesn't have anything to do with Daniel Boone, actually. This book is one I put together recently, and like the first one, it relies upon the correspondence between this fellow John Floyd and some of his friends, including George Rogers Clark. And he was the first man into Kentucky who did any legal surveying around here. He was surveying in Kentucky in 1774. And the surveys he made, including those that covered Lexington and downtown Louisville, they were the first ones, and they were made good and still good. That's the only books we have here, besides the one here. I haven't read this book, so I can't say too much about it. This is by Sue Kelly Ballard, and it's a novel about Rebecca Boone, Daniel Boone's wife, and what these are, I'm not sure. The old Wilderness Trail. Anyhow, now I'm a member of the Boone, an honorary member of the Boone Society, but I'm not a Boone relative or descendant. My ancestor didn't get into Kentucky until 1782, and whether they stopped by Boonesborough, we don't know. They were in Bryan Station, lived up in Bryan Station, and later on they moved with Captain Robert Johnson to Johnson Station, which was at the Great Crossing. So that's all I think I can tell you.
You might want to hear from Gene.
Gene, come over and talk to us.
What service were you in, sir?
I was in the Navy.
Yes. His father was a naval doctor.
I was an ensign in the Navy in World War II. I was on the USS Montpelier.
Okay, my name's Gene Ray. I'm one of the co-founders of the Boone Society. It all started about 16 or so years ago with several of us that were on the internet on a genealogy site at the time that was called Prodigy. It's long since gone now, but several of us were on there exchanging information about the Boone family. I've always known that I'm a direct descendant of Daniel and Rebecca, so I had a keen interest in exploring other folks and finding what their interest was. We had a large following on there, as it turned out, and so myself and a fellow named Pete Holsty decided it would be a good idea to have a family reunion. And so we had our first family reunion now, I guess it's been about 15 years ago. And we started in St. Louis, and that's where Nathan and Daniel and several of the family ended up. When they left here, they moved to Missouri and settled in St. Charles County. And so we had a lot to do and see in St. Louis and St. Charles area that related to Daniel and the family. And it's grown from there. We're having our next reunion again back in St. Louis, but we've traveled all over the country. We've been here in Kentucky at least twice. We've been in Pennsylvania, we've been in Oregon, we've been in North Carolina, back to St. Louis again next year. So it's been a lot of fun. We have probably around 400 members now. It is international. We have some members in as far away as Belgium. So it's been a real delight to see the organization grow the way it has. It's been a lot of fun, and I look forward to continuing to meet a lot of my distant cousins. Thank you.
How do we get in it? Hold of you. I know at least 15 people that are related to Daniel Boone that you don't know.
I tell people, you know, Daniel and Rebecca had 10 children and 69 grandchildren. Can you imagine Christmas morning at their house? By the time it gets to my generation, there's probably 250,000 people that can claim direct descendancy to them. But you can get to the website, as Eldon has said, www.boonesociety.com or .org, and you can find a lot of information about the family on there. There's a button that you can click to get to our genealogist, and she can give you a lot of direct assistance if you have specific questions about any member of your family that might be connected to the Boones.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
We're here at Fort Boonesborough State Park. We're very fortunate today to have a donation that's going to be given to our Fort Boonesborough Foundation from Keith and Angie Crawford, a couple from Berea. And I'd like to introduce them and have Keith tell us a little bit about the powder horn and where it was found. And then I'll also introduce Bill Farmer, our fort manager, and our president of our foundation, George Schaffam. So Keith, come on up and tell us a little bit about the powder horn. Keith was grateful enough to contact Bill Farmer, our fort manager, and also some other experts in the field of these kind of, what would you call it? I don't call it an antique, I'd call it
artifact.
Artifact, thank you, that's the word I was looking for. And it is authentic, and I'll let Keith tell you a little bit about the history of it.
Well, to be honest with you, we don't know a whole lot of history about it. It was found probably less than a quarter of a mile from here. All I really know about it is my father more or less left it on a bookshelf for about 30 years before he left it with me. And he always said just after you passed the Lyle house as we was going to the beach that he would look over to your right, and he would say that's where he found it at, and there was just some pieces of some old buildings there. And when he was about 15 years old then, and it was probably 1952, the summer of 1952. I never paid a whole lot of attention to it, and every time, of course, you're watching Daniel Boone or something on TV, you always wonder if it really is authentic. And when you see it, it's kind of small and it's kind of rough, so we always thought maybe it was a toy or something that somebody had made just for their kids or something like that. So we never paid a whole lot of attention to it, but we kept it on a shelf, and it was very interesting, and it's got a big wire hole in the side of it. And one day back in the winter, we were honestly sitting around watching Daniel Boone on TV, one of the old reruns, and I told my wife, I said, let's call Boonesborough and see if there's anybody there and see if it's that maybe we can find out whether it's real or if it's not real. And to our surprise, there was a lot of people here. I think the Long Rifle Association was here, is that correct? And so we gave a call, and they said, yeah, bring it on down. And we almost chickened out 2 or 3 times because we thought when we get here, you know, everybody will laugh at us and think it's just a toy or something that was found out in the woods. So we still, anyway, we went on and got down there, and much to our surprise when we opened it up, Mr. Farmer said, oh, it's not a toy, it's actually a powder horn. Of course, it's really hard to say how old it is, but like I said, my father found it around 1952, less than a quarter of a mile from where the fort used to be. So it's an interesting piece, and today with all the descendants of the Boonesborough here, it's just a prestigious time to bring it here and donate it to the foundation, and we would just love to do that in my father's memory because he really was a history buff. And he was especially interested in pioneer stories and that type of thing. So this would mean a great deal to him to donate it to some place that it could be displayed for as long as possible.
Keith, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And it's going to be donated to our foundation, not the park itself. So, and it will be permanently on exhibit here at the park once we get a display case built for it. And we're very grateful of you and Angie to think of us, because it'll be a great piece to talk about and people to look at. With that, I'd like to introduce Bill Farmer, our Fort manager. I'd like him to come up here. He has a little something he wants to read to everybody. And I also want to thank Bill for his idea about this weekend. Over the long winter we had, Bill got to thinking about new programming for us here at Fort Boonesborough and came up with the idea for this weekend. And we appreciate everybody coming out, and it's been a good success, and we're going to try to build on it every year. So, Bill? Oh, okay.
I have a little piece here I'd like to read. I came across this by sheer accident within the last 48 hours. And one of the things that we do here, if you've made the trip around through the fort, we have some original artifacts, and it's really nice if someone expresses a specific interest, or really shows that they're interested in a certain item. If it's out where we can put it in their hand, and it means so much more than just reading about it in a book or seeing it in a case. And I want to read this to you. When I hold an antique, no matter what the vintage, it speaks to me. Whether it's a rifle, a cutting board, or a bread bowl, it's my connection to the past. In that object, I can see the life's experience of the ones who owned it before. In that object, I can see my ancestors struggle to survive, raise families, and build America. It gives me pause to wonder about what they saw and what did they endure. With 18th and 19th century frontier items especially, there's a vivid picture of survival to be told. These items were necessary for one's survival and the survival of one's family members. The story of America has been applied to these items with the blood, sweat, and tears of those who held, used, and depended on them. Anonymous. Don't have a clue who wrote it. That fits the item right there.
Thank you, Bill. That was great. Thank you. I want to introduce George Chalfont, who is the president of the Fort Boonesborough Society. George, come on out here. I can't say enough about the foundation that supports our park. It's a nonprofit foundation that raises money through events like this, rifle raffles, and they're a wonderful group of people to work with. And I tell you, in a state agency where we work so hard to make your experience count, it's nice to have a foundation like our Fort Boonesborough Foundation to turn to and say, hey, you know, can you help us with this, or can you help us with that? Because it seems like it's a constant struggle for us to come up with money to do new programming. And the Fort Boonesborough Foundation helps us with that. And it's programming like today, our Fireside Chat series, and our Christmas, 18th century Christmas that the foundation supports. So I'd like to introduce George and let them do the presentation.
Keith, it's awesome that you're doing this for us. Everyone else that visits this park, it'll be a great addition to the park. And I know when you first laid that on the table, as I told you, a lot of people got very excited about this. And Bill made a comment. He thought this was probably where it rubbed against a person's body or leather or something. And that size hornbill was more likely wasn't for a flash band. It wasn't a major short hunt, maybe, but not a long hunt. They wouldn't carry enough powder. But it's an awesome piece. That's the first time I've seen it. And I really appreciate this.
We appreciate you all.
We welcome back and hope to show it to you in a nice case. everyone can see. So come back anytime. And I think we'll probably make you an honorary member of the foundation. We usually do this, and you can come in, maybe your sweet wife, come in and join us. Maybe we'll just sign you up too. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. We'll start the film again here shortly if you get in and watch the film. So give us just a couple minutes. Very good. Okay, I'll put it in safe. Take it off. Put it in the long rifle.
The Fort Boonesborough Foundation was formed in about 2000, and we are a 501c3, and we accept donations. We flip hamburgers and hot dogs to help raise money, sell t-shirts, and everything we do supports the park. Our mission statement is to support Fort Boonesborough Park, and we spend a lot of money helping do additional programming here at the fort. Today we are feeding all of those that have come here to volunteer their time today. That's our donation for the day. And we always have good help. We have lots of volunteers who are very generous with their time and come and help us flip those hamburgers and sell those t-shirts. And the foundation has this year, our biggest expense ever for the park is the new signage that you see throughout the park. And we're very proud of that. Hadn't been replaced in 40 years, and we've been able to do all the new signage and make it look very, very nice again.
Well, why is this important?
This foundation is important to the park because everybody knows the budget with the state is stretched, and so we are the extras. We are the extra programming for events. We are extra items that they don't have the money for. We are like the signage that they could never have gotten out of the other budget. We are the fireside chats in February that entertains the public and is a good fundraiser for us, and we only use people that are period correct in that time frame for our each Saturday performance, and that's a fundraiser for us, but it's also a place for everybody to go on a February Saturday night and learn about Fort Boonesborough and the era, and we always have music and cider in the tavern, and we feed a meal and have a good time. And we also support the other parts of the park, not just the fort. We've planted trees down in the park. We've bought things for the campground and so forth as well. And it's without the foundation, there wouldn't be the still. We have a reproduction still. We have authentic reproduction survey equipment. We have the fort here has a drum that they use for ceremonies. Those kinds of things that we've also purchased that enhances the visitors' visit here.
Okay, and why is this important to history? What do you want people to learn about?
Everybody needs to know where they came from. And many, many, many people, and this weekend is evidence of that, looking up descendants and all the people that are here to help you see who your descendants were and where they came from. Everybody needs to know where they came from to know where they're going. And being here and being supportive of the fort and the park brings that information to the public and gives them the opportunity to learn. And we are the catalyst that helps that happen.
Very good. What else you want to tell them?
If someone wants to get involved with you or help you in any way, how do they get in touch with you?
We have a FortBoonesborougghFoundation.org website, and on there you can fill out a membership form and become part. You can call us up. From that, there's a website, there's a phone number on the website. You can come to an event at the fort where we are doing things, and we'll be glad. We have always got membership forms with us. And today, with the dedication of the powder horn, we made those people honorary members for lifetime, because that was such a nice donation to the fort that our part to say thank you to them is that they're now honorary members as well.
Okay, and who are all these other people over
Well, these are our volunteers. We have Denise, she's the head.
Hey, Denise!
It's just interesting. And Randy.
Hey, Randy.
And George. Yeah.
George.
Yeah. And Bob is here. He's our ticket seller today. He's talking into buying a raffle ticket. We have a nice raffle ensemble that here with a handmade and rifle that was donated to us, as well as the bag and the horn. That's all been donated to us as a fundraiser. And we also have a wonderful hand-carved bowl from Randy. And the uniqueness about this bowl today, and it's being raffled today and will be given away at 4 o'clock, is there's a bullet in that piece of wood that when he was carving the bowl, he found the bullet. He had to sharpen his knife after he found the bullet, but he brought that today for us to be able to raise a little extra money with, to help pay for those signs. We have T-shirts. We have our foundation T-shirts. We have the Descendants T-shirts that are new just for this weekend. We have DVD of the Siege, Women on the Frontier books. Harry Enoch has the William Koch journal that he's given us the rights to, and then the Women on the Frontier Fort Boonesborough book. And this is Christy Heasley, one of our dedicated members, who also is a reenactor and interpreter here at many of our programming. She heads up our Women on the Frontier programming in the spring, and we couldn't do Frontier Christmas without her.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Christy Heasley. I'm with the Fort Boonesborough Foundation here at Fort Boonesborough today for our Ancestors Weekend. I've been asked to tell you a little bit about women on the frontier. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of great documentation about the women that came through the fort, although one of our members has helped us publish this book, Women at Fort Boonesborough, which actually does document all the women that were here. Because a lot of the women were illiterate and didn't write a lot of things down, we don't have as much history about those women as we do about the men, like Daniel Boone. There's very little written about Rebecca Boone, but there were some very prominent women that came through here that helped shape the state, the future state, and the western frontier. And most of those women came not because they had a choice, but because they were following their men. And so they were just as important, though, to the settlement, because they were the ones that built the homes and kept the homes together when their men were away.
Okay. Anything else you want to tell us about the books or anything going on here?
Well, we're selling 2 books today. We've got the William Koch Journal and the Women at Fort Boonesborough that we've mentioned. These were put together and researched by Harry Enoch, one of our members, and a very well-known local historian. He transcribed William Koch's journal. William Koch was the man who laid the original survey for this fort. We are selling these for $15 and $10, and proceeds go to the foundation, which I believe Elizabeth told you supports the programming here at the fort and here at the park. And of course our Ancestors Weekend is about descendants of all those who passed through the fort. And we've been told recently that 47 million people in the United States have been affected by the people that came through the Cumberland Gap, and many of those ended up here at Boonesborough. But that's how many people are descended from the people that came through that area.
Okay, thank you.
Really go. Hi, my name's David Guess, and I am here because my 4th great-grandfather was at Boonesborough along with his cousin. And my 4th great-grandfather was John Guess, It's actually spelled on the monument Gass, G-A-S-S, as is his cousin David Gass. My fourth great grandfather's claim to fame at Boonesborough goes back to when Jemima Boone, Becky, and Fanny Calloway were kidnapped by the Shawnee. And most of us understand that the Shawnee were hired by the British to disrupt everything. They had asked their parents if they could go across the river and visit a friend that lived over where Hall's Restaurant is right now. All the men in the fort, everyone in the fort was in a meeting. It was a Sunday afternoon, except for one man. And that man was down at the river fishing. He was down fishing, he saw the girls, they waved to him. He watches them go across the river, and the next thing he knows, he sees the Shawnee jump out of the bulrushes at the edge of the river. He then runs back, warns the fort, tells the fort what's going on. He goes back to follow the trail to make sure he's got the trail back as everybody in the fort is trying to get ready to come off and save the girls. My fourth great grandfather gathered up the clothes for the men who had already gone on. They were wearing, by today's standards, they would be wearing like their suits. My fourth great grandfather, I say, gathered up the Levi's and the hiking boots. We know the story. They eventually found the girls. They killed the Indians that had kidnapped them. And John Guess is listed as one of the first heroes in Kentucky. Just a short story of him. He went on to Harrodsburg. He was in a battle over at Harrodsburg and took a bullet right across his jaw. From that point on, he grew a big long beard. A little vanity suffereth long and is not kind type of thing. He then, when the fort here was basically, I don't want to say it was a way station, but people came to stop here and then move on. He went over to Bourbon County and was one of the first settlers of Bourbon County and ended up getting a land grant in Fayette County. And the Guest family in Fayette County has been over there since 1790. That's a quick one for my story of visiting Boonesborough today.
Thank you.
Why did they choose this spot in the river to settle after coming from the Cumberland Gap?
Well, actually, when he was with a group of guys that came, and it's a long, kind of a long and involved story. It's on the internet. If you look up John Guest, Kentucky Hero, there's a nice big story written about it. He would have stayed here. From the writings I have, I've got the family Bible at home with actually notes written by him. He loved the area, but he was more of a farmer. He was more of a stockman. He liked cattle. Now, we all know that had it not been for Daniel Boone going to the legislature or whatever in Virginia saying, we want good stock, we want good horses and good cattle here, we probably wouldn't see anything, not like we do today. You wouldn't have the thoroughbred industry and you wouldn't have the cattle industry. Well, he got into cattle, and so he was always looking for a flat land. Our farm in Lexington, or in Fayette County, all of that land is pretty flat. And so he had hundreds of head of cattle on it. And that was passed down through the family part of that farm is still there today. So.
So what kind of work do you do?
I manage $800 million. I'm a money manager.
Okay.
And a risk manager for hedge.
Question, then.
All right. Do you want to hang this up?
Thank you.
With your 401ks, hold on.
I'm Kathy Mutz. I'm here representing the Kentucky Genealogical Society, and we are an organization that helps preserve and educate on genealogy. Our society meets the second Saturday of every month at the Kentucky History Center in Frankfort. We usually have 2 one-hour programs. Sometimes they're on history, sometimes they're on genealogy, because we meet in conjunction with the Historical Society. We meet at the History Center, as I said, but in the upper level there's a genealogical library. has a lot of information that people are interested in. On this year, on August the 1st, we're going to have an annual seminar. We usually have it the first Saturday in August, and we bring in a speaker. This year it's going to be John Coletta. He's a certified genealogist and a very entertaining and interesting speaker who's going to give us a lot of information about genealogy and resources that you can use to trace your family tree. And that's what we do in terms of the Kentucky Genealogical Society. We bring people together who are interested in genealogy. They come from all over the state. And one of the biggest factors is talking to other people, learning what they're doing, finding out how they got through their brick walls, and we're able to trace their family tree and get information from them that you might be able to use as you're tracing your family tree. So that's the Kentucky Genealogical Society.
And who are these people behind you over here?
Okay, behind us over here we have representatives from the Boonesborough chapter of the DAR and National Society of DAR, and we're located, and I happen to be a member of that too, and we're located in Richmond, and we're one of the oldest chapters in the state. We were formed in 1896, and we would be happy to answer any questions about the DAR and what DAR does. It's a service organization, and this is our chapter regent, Betsy Birch, and
this is our new brochure.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Hold the microphone, tell us all about it.
This is our new brochure that our webmaster made, Kathy made this brochure. It's just wonderful. It tells a lot about Boonesborough chapter. It also tells some things about national DAR as well. We've helped several people here today try to find a Revolutionary War ancestor that's listed on the DAR website. And so I feel really good about today, helping a little bit of people.
And it might be interesting to know that the Boonesborough chapter of DAR actually owns the property on which sits the original fort.
Yeah.
And we have a monument down there, and
we
maintain it and take care of it.
Okay, who's this gentleman back here? Do we know?
He's a visitor.
He's a visitor.
Okay, thank y'all very much. Appreciate it.
I'm not in the DAR.
And how close do I have to stand, right?
You're good.
Good.
You move around, whatever you're going to do.
Okay. Well, I guess my interest here is mainly in Boonesborough and the settlements that came out around from Boonesborough and the people that came here. I'm interested because I live 3 miles up the hill in Clark County, and as we tell people, I live 3 miles from where it all started. Because in Kentucky, this really is where it all started. 1775, when they came out here, there were no white people living in Kentucky. And this is, well, Harrodsburg has a slightly, few months earlier, claim to permanent settlement, but Boonesborough followed right after and got the most famous people here, like Daniel Boone. So they got better press. I'm retired, and my interest has been in researching the people that lived in this area, the pioneers, the first settlers, trying to find out who they were, learn their stories, their interconnections, where they came from, and I just was interested in doing it for my own interest. But then when I gathered enough information, then the only way to share that is really to write it, and so that's when I started putting it into books. And so being retired, that's what I do.
Well, tell us about your books, why they're important.
Well, Colonel John Holder, he was the commander of the fort here after Daniel Boone left. After Daniel Boone's court-martial, he said good riddance to Boonesborough, and he was gone. Callaway got killed, and then that left Captain John Holder in charge, and he stayed here in command for about 5 years, then moved across the river to the mouth of Lower Howard Creek, which is our landmark. That's the creek I live on, 3 miles away. And he started a station there, one of the early stations of Clark County, Holder Station, right near the river. But he was also an industrial entrepreneur. He had a ferry, a mill, a tavern, probably a distillery, a warehouse, and a boatyard. He made the flat boats that people would ship their produce to New Orleans on. So he had a cash producing business in a society that really was strapped for cash. But he also had a lot of debts. He spent money profusely and owed everybody money when he died prematurely. But he has a very interesting story of his life, and when you start researching somebody, you find out all kind of interesting details, sordid stories and events and things that make him interesting to talk about and write about. So, and most of what I've done is continuing along that line with other people who lived along Lower Howard Creek. John Martin was another early one on Lower Howard Creek, and this book is called Pioneer Voices. It's the interviews, transcribed interviews of Clark County pioneers that the Reverend John Dabney Shane conducted. This minister traveled. He didn't spend much time ministering. He spent most of his time traveling around interviewing people who had come out in the early days. He was in the 1840s when he did this, so the people were getting very old. So he got a lot of interviews with old people, some people who were actually children when they were here at Boonesborough. But they told their stories about coming out, their troubles with Indians, and about what it was like to live back in the early settlement of Kentucky. So all that fascinates me, and there are a few other people that are also fascinated by it, so we have some overlap.
Okay, if people want to buy these books, how do they get a hold of you?
Amazon.com sells all the books you want. But if you want to actually help somebody, you can buy books here at the fort. You can buy books at the museum in Winchester. The Bluegrass Heritage Museum has them all. But if you're not from here, then Amazon is the place everybody buys books.
Okay. What's the next book going to be?
I'm working on another Lower Howard Creek personality, Captain Billy Bush, who started the Bush settlement in this southern area of Clark County. I'm about halfway through working on that one.
Okay. Anything else you want to tell them?
Thank God it's almost over.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks. I'm sweaty. Okay, we're at this ARC TV. We're at the original site for the Fort Boonesborough here in Boonesborough, Kentucky, just south of Lexington. We're at the spot where Daniel Boone and a group of fellow settlers came through Virginia, through the Cumberland Gap, and made their way up the Kentucky River here to again, the original site of Boonesborough. We have this right here on the river, just 100 feet away there. You're looking at the monument put up by the Daughters of the Revolution back in 1907 that commemorates this site. And you see the first names, of course, are Colonel Daniel Boone, his wife Rebecca, Jeremiah, Squire William Bentley. Then you have Colonel Richard Galloway, Betsy Galloway, Francis Galloway, Adam Caperton, General Green Clay, Captain John Holder. We have David Cruz there, William Cradeborough, William Janot, Elizabeth Mullins Janot, Captain James Estel, Samuel Estel, that's Colonel Ezekiel Field, Colonel Nathaniel Hart, Colonel Richard Henderson,
That's Dr. Hines and then Richard Hogan. So again, that's one side there. We have some up here too as well. James McMillan Sr., Margaret White. I think that's McMill there, I guess. A little hard to read that section there. Colonel John Snooty. Okay. And Mr. Captain John Kennedy and Captain William Bush. So that's one side of the original settlers of the original site of Fort Boonesborough. We have another side of, again, this monument was the Daughters of the Revolution put this up. Colonel Robert Rhodes, Pepperton Rowlands, Michael Stoner, Peter Taylor, Thomas Tribble, Colonel Isaac Shelby, Lieutenant Jared Williams, Captain Archibald Woods, Reverend Jazz Quisenberry, Christopher Harris, Richard Gentry, I think it is, and Gallon White. So again, another side of this monument. This side we're coming to is the introduction side of, again, shows in memory of the pioneers of Kentucky, erected by the Boonesborough chapter of the DAR in 1907. And the final list of settlers, of course, in the original fort is Captain Dave Case, William Irvin, Abraham Newland, Jesse Oldham, Yelverton Payton, Ann Covey Payton, Thomas Phelps, Joshua Phelps, George Phelps, Lucy Phelps, John Phelps, and a Joseph Proctor. So these are the early, again, original settlers. On the top there, of course, shows the time of the settlement, 1775 to 1783 there. The original fort was in location here on the banks of the Kentucky River. This is scenery of one of the original walls, what's left here. At least that's what we were told, or the story.
Okay, here we are on the Kentucky River, and we are adjacent to Fort Boonesborough in Fort Boonesborough, Kentucky. Many of the people that their ancestors came through here, traded here, stopped here, lived here, are related or direct descendants of people in Southwest Virginia and the Carolinas. As of course the gateway to the west was Cumberland Gap, and for that day and time that was like landing on the moon, a new frontier, plenty of land, plenty of water, and that's what drove people west. At one time, probably 2/3, if not more, of the people west of Cumberland Gap were related to someone back in Southwest Virginia, East Kentucky, or the Carolinas. Well, let us know what your thoughts are, where your relatives are, your stories about your relatives and what all went on in your neck of the woods. Join us another time, another date, and have a great one. See you soon on the road. Bye.
River, everyone. My name is Frank Schnapp Jr. It's been a destination here since the days of Daniel Boone. Great place for good friends, great music, I'm told great music, and wonderful food. So let's get started. A long time forgotten, dreams that just fell by the way. The good life he promised ain't what she's living today. But she never complains, all the bad times and bad things he's done. She just talks about the good times they've had, all the good times to come. She's a good-hearted woman, loving a good time and man. She loves him in spite of his ways she don't understand. And through teardrops and laughter they'll pass through this world hand in hand. A good-hearted woman, loving a good time and man. He likes nightlife, the bright lights and good time and friends. And when the party's all over, she'll welcome him back home again. Lord knows she don't understand him, but she does the best that she can. Oh, this good-hearted woman, loving a good time and man. She's a good-hearted woman, loving a good time and man. She loves him in spite of his wicked ways she don't understand. Through teardrops and laughter they'll pass through this world hand in hand. A good-hearted woman, loving a good time and man. She's a good-hearted woman, loving a good time and man. She loves me in spite of my wicked ways she don't understand. Through teardrops and laughter we'll pass through this world hand in hand. A good-hearted woman, loving a good time and man. A good-hearted woman, loving a good time and man. There we go, Waylon. Yes, thank you. That's that old stuff from the 70s, yeah. That's pretty old, huh? We'll do some newer stuff then. See if you recognize this. South to the land of the pine, thumbing my way to North Carolina, staring up the road and pray to God I see headlights.
Well, I made it down the coast in 17 hours, picking me a bouquet of dogwood flowers, and I'm hoping for Raleigh I can see my baby tonight. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, any way you feel. Hey, mama, rock me. Rock me, mama, like the wind and the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Hey, mama, rock me. Running from the cold up in New England, I was born to be a fiddler in an old-time string band. My baby plays the guitar, I pick the banjo now. Oh, North Country winters keep getting me down. Lost my money playing poker, so I had to walk from that. But I ain't turning back, living that old life no more. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, any way you feel. Hey, mama, rock me. Rock me, mama, like the wind and the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Hey, mama, rock me. Walking to the south out of Roanoke, I caught a trucker out of Philly, had a nice long tote. But he's headed west from the Cumberland Gap, Johnson City, Tennessee. Well, I gotta keep a move on before the sun. Hear my baby calling my name in a nudge. She's the only one, and if I die in Raleigh, at least I will die free. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, any way you feel. Hey, mama, rock me. Rock me, mama, like the wind and the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Hey, mama, rock me. The Old Crow Medicine Show. Johnny Cash. Now I taught the weeping willow how to cry, and I showed the crowd how to cover of a clear blue sky. And the tears that I cried for that woman are gonna flood you, big river, and I'm gonna sit right here until I die. Well, I met her accidentally in St. Paul, Minnesota. They tore me up every time I heard her drawl, southern drawl. Then I heard my dream, went back downstream, cavorting in Davenport, and I followed you, big river, when you called. Then you took me to St. Louis, later on down the river. A freighter said she's been here, but she's gone, boy, she's gone. I found her trail in Memphis, but she just walked up the bluff. She raised a few eyebrows and then she went on down along. Now won't you bat it down by Baton Rouge, River Queen, rolling on. Take that woman on down to New Orleans, New Orleans. Go on, I've had enough, done my blues down in the Gulf. She loves you, Big River, more than me. Now I taught the weeping willow how to cry, cry, cry. I showed the clouds how to cover up a clear blue sky. And the tears that I cried for that woman are gonna flood you, Big River. And I'm gonna sit right here until I die. There we go. All right. Johnny. Yeah. I don't see Ryan. This is his favorite song. Where'd he go? I'll wait for him. The first thing I remember knowing was a lonesome whistle blowing. Youngins dream of growing up to ride on a freight train leaving town and not knowing where I'm bound. No one could change my mind, but Mama tried. The one and only rebel child from a family meek and mild. Mama seemed to know what lay in store. Despite all my Sunday learning, towards the bad I kept on turning. Mama couldn't hold me anymore. I turned 21 at present, doing life without parole. No one could change my mind, but Mama tried. Mama tried. Mama tried to raise me better, but her pleading I denied. That leaves only me to blame, 'cause Mama tried. Dear old daddy, rest his soul, left my mom a heavy load. Tried so very hard to fill his shoes. Working hours without rest, wanted me to have the best. Tried to raise me right, but I refused. I turned 21 at present, doing life without parole. No one could change my mind, but Mama tried. Mama tried. Mama tried to raise me better, but her pleading I denied. That leaves only me to blame, 'cause Mama tried. I turned 21 at present, doing life without parole. No one could change my mind, but Mama tried. Mama tried. Mama tried to raise me better, but her pleading I denied. That leaves only me to blame, 'cause Mama tried. Only me to blame, 'cause Mama tried. Yeah. Pearl Haggard. All right. You won't know this one because I wrote it. It's for anybody that's got moonshining relatives in their family. This one's for them. That may or may not had to spend some time in the county lockup. I might know a few. Now when they caught me down on the river flats, I was drinking and drinking with a broad rim hat. I was bound to stay until that old sun would shine. My cousin had a jar of the sweet homemade from a batch he distilled just the other day. We had some friends and ladies and everything was fine. Just then I saw some fellas that I knew quite well. They had badges and guns and it all went to hell. And now we're headed back to the jailhouse one more time. Yeah, we're back hanging out with some good old friends. It's in the block walls from end to end. All the meals are free, we got time on our side. But don't look for us on Sunday afternoon. Though we'd love to sit and pick all of our favorite tunes. But we're heading back to the jailhouse one more time. Well, we sat right down in the back of that car with our hands cinched up. We're looking near and far. I got an old familiar feeling crawling up my spine. There's an orange jumpsuit that's waiting for me. There's a cell with a number. We're a long way from free. Just another day spent in this life of crime. Yeah, we're back hanging out with some good old friends. It's in the block walls from end to end. All the meals are free, we got time on our side. But don't look for us on Sunday afternoon. Though we'd love to sit and pick all of our favorite tunes. And we're headed back to the jailhouse one more time. My cousin just learned a new wine recipe. We're gonna try it out tomorrow about 3:30, 'cause we're headed back to the jailhouse one more time. We're headed back to the jailhouse one more time. We're headed back to the jailhouse. And we know this ain't the last time though. Right on, thank you. That'll be on the first album coming out sometime in 2020. Yeah. So don't hold your breath. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. I hear the train a-coming, it's rolling round a bend. I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when. Well, I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps a-rolling on down to San Antonio. Now when I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy, don't ever play with guns. But I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. When I hit that whistle blowing, I hang my head and cry. I bet there's rich folks eating from a fancy dining car, probably drinking coffee and smoking big cigars. Well, I know I had it coming. I know I can't be free. But those people keep a moving, and that's what tortures me. Well, if they'd freed me from that prison, that railroad train was mine, I bet I'd move it on a little farther down the line. Far from Folsom Prison, that's where I want to stay. And I'd let that lonesome whistle blow my blues away. You know I'd let that lonesome whistle blow my blues away. Johnny. Woo! We're gonna never get tired of that one. Yeah.